They don't shout, they don't fight, and they don't need weapons. The most dangerous manipulators in the world use one thing: psychology. They control emotions, twist your thoughts, and make you believe every decision was yours, when in reality, it never was. Today, I'm exposing 20 dark psychology tricks used by manipulators, the exact tactics they use to control, deceive, and dominate others. Once you see them, you'll never unsee them. Number 1, the weapon of silence, Machiavellian silence. Before we unlock this first dark weapon, pause for a second and subscribe right now. Why? Because once you recognize this tactic, manipulators lose their power over you forever. Silence is not empty. It's the loudest scream in dark psychology. Most people think power is loud. They imagine shouting matches, slam doors, or sharp words. But the most dangerous manipulators know better. They control you by saying nothing at all. The silent treatment is one of the oldest, most insidious psychological weapons. On the surface, it's just quiet, but underneath, it is calculated torture. Silence leaves you trapped inside your own head. It forces you to replay every word you said, every action you took, until guilt and anxiety eat you alive. Humans are social beings. Our brains are wired to interpret silence not as neutral, but as rejection, a threat to survival. In ancient times, silence in a tribe could mean exile, and exile meant death. This is why, even today, when someone withdraws communication, your subconscious panics. Have I lost them? Did I do something unforgivable? I need to fix this right now. And so, you move toward them, even when they're the one harming you. This is Machiavellian psychology in action. In The Prince, Machiavelli noted that rulers must control not only what they say, but what they don't say. A ruler's silence makes others uneasy, guessing, and desperate to regain favor. The manipulator becomes the ruler. You become the desperate subject. Picture this. You text your partner something vulnerable, maybe even confrontational. Hours pass. Then a day. No reply. The silence grows louder. Your chest tightens. You check your phone obsessively. Sleep won't come. Your mind replays every word you sent. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I should just apologize. By the time they finally reply, calm, collected, as if nothing happened, you've already surrendered. You don't bring up the issue. You just want peace. This is not an accident. It's strategy. They didn't just ignore you. They controlled you. It's not just lovers who use this trick. Politicians, bosses, and even world leaders weaponize silence. A boss doesn't answer your email after you ask for a raise. The silence forces you into self-doubt. Maybe I'm not worthy. Maybe I should lower my demand. A politician refuses to comment on a scandal. The silence forces the public to speculate wildly, sometimes even defending them in the absence of facts. A leader pauses before answering a question. The silence commands respect and makes every word that follows seem more powerful. Machiavelli would call this strategic absence. He wrote that rulers must learn the art of absence, for absence breeds reverence, while familiarity breeds contempt. Silence, then, is not weakness. It's presence magnified through absence. Machiavelli believed that fear is more reliable than love when it comes to control. Silence instills fear, not the fear of violence, but the quieter, sharper fear of abandonment and uncertainty. The manipulator doesn't have to say, "I control you." The silence itself whispers it. Say this with me. I am no longer controlled by silence. I control my peace. Write in the comments if you've ever broken free from someone's silent manipulation. And remember, if silence can bend your mind without a word, imagine what happens when manipulators weaponize fear and scarcity. Machiavelli himself warned that rulers who control fear can control nations. You'll see how manipulators make you chase them by making you terrified of losing them. Number 2, fear and scarcity, the twin levers of control. Before we dive into this next dark weapon, smash that like button right now. Why? Because fear and scarcity are the two oldest tools of rulers and manipulators, and once you see them, you'll recognize how the world has been controlling you since the beginning of time. Every manipulator knows one truth. Fear makes the subconscious obey. Scarcity makes the subconscious chase. Together, they're like twin strings attached to your mind, pulling you wherever the manipulator wants. Think about it. Why do people stay in toxic relationships, bad jobs, or abusive power dynamics? It's not always because of love, loyalty, or even money. It's because of fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of starting over. Fear of missing out. And it's because of scarcity. You'll never find someone like me again. This is your only shot at success. If you don't take this deal now, it's gone forever. The manipulator whispers fear into your ear, and you move. In The Prince, Machiavelli declared, "It is safer to be feared than loved if one must choose." Why? Because fear can be manufactured. It doesn't require your affection, only your insecurity. A ruler, a boss, or a lover who instills fear never has to beg for loyalty. The fear itself binds you. Scarcity is its natural partner. If something is rare, humans chase it, even if it destroys them. Psychologists call this scarcity bias. When opportunities feel limited, our brain assigns them exaggerated value. Machiavelli would say, "The ruler who creates scarcity creates desperation. Desperation makes obedience automatic." When manipulators combine fear and scarcity, the effect is devastating. A partner says, "If you ever leave me, you'll never survive without me." A boss says, "There are thousands of people who'd kill for your job. Be grateful." A marketer says, "Only 3 spots left. Act now or regret forever." Your brain goes into panic mode. You don't evaluate logically. You obey emotionally. Imagine the scenario. You're in a shaky relationship. Things are tense. One night, your partner looks at you and says, "If you walk out that door, I'm gone forever. You'll never find someone who loves you like I do." That single sentence plants both seeds. Fear of abandonment, scarcity of love. And suddenly you feel trapped, not by their love, but by your own fear of loss. You stay, even when your heart screams to leave. That's not love. That's psychological imprisonment. This isn't just personal, it's global. Leaders have ruled nations with this trick. Dictators warn, "Without me, chaos will consume the nation." Corporations whisper, "By now, limited stock." Religions caution, "Disobey and eternal punishment awaits." Fear and scarcity shape entire civilizations. Why? Because they bypass logic and speak directly to the subconscious survival drive. Machiavelli taught rulers, create threats and limit options. When the people believe danger surround them, and only you hold the key, they'll follow you willingly. Say this out loud. "I am stronger than fear and I never chase scarcity." Write in the comments if you're ready to break free from this illusion. And if fear and scarcity can control nations, imagine what happens when manipulators use your kindness against you. They twist generosity into chains that bind you. Guilt tripping, the sweetest poison of all. Number 3, guilt tripping, the sweetest poison. Manipulators don't need violence, threats, or anger. They weaponize your own morality and kindness. Once you see this, you'll never allow guilt to control you again. Guilt tripping is one of the oldest and most powerful psychological tricks. Manipulators don't attack directly. They exploit your empathy and sense of responsibility. It starts subtly. "After everything I've done for you, I guess I was wrong to expect better from you. If you loved me, you would..." Notice the pattern? They're not asking, demanding, or threatening. They're wrapping control and morality, making you feel bad for even thinking of saying no. Machiavelli would recognize this immediately. In The Prince, he notes that rulers often manipulate subjects by playing on conscience and obligation, creating compliance without force. Guilt tripping is emotional taxation, payable with your freedom. Guilt attacks the mind in 2 ways. 1. Internalized responsibility. You start thinking, maybe I really am a bad person. 2. Behavioral control. Once you feel guilty, you are more likely to comply with the manipulator's next request. It's a clever trick because the weapon is invisible. You aren't coerced. You choose to obey. And that choice binds you tighter than any chain. Imagine a friend says, "After all the times I've helped you, how could you not return the favor?" You feel ashamed. Your mind rewinds every time they helped you. You start saying yes to requests you never wanted to fulfill. And here's the Machiavellian twist. They never ask directly. You obeyed because guilt made you feel compelled. The manipulator thrives on this invisible power. Your conscience becomes their leash. Guilt tripping isn't limited to friendships or lovers. It exists everywhere. Workplace. A boss might say, "I've always believed in your potential. Don't let me down now." Suddenly, you overwork to avoid disappointing them. Politics. Leaders blame citizens for societal problems. If only you follow the rules. Fear is one lever. Guilt is another. Family. Parents or relatives weaponize expectations. After all I've done for you, making adults bend the rules long after childhood. Machiavelli understood that control through perception is stronger than control through force. Guilt tripping is control through self-perception. What makes guilt tripping so deadly is its invisibility. Unlike yelling or threats, you don't see it coming. By the time you notice, your thoughts, actions, and emotions are already manipulated. And manipulators are patient. They drip guilt slowly, weaving it into your daily interactions until it becomes second nature. Say this with me. I release guilt that does not belong to me. My choices are my own, not dictated by another's manipulation. And if guilt can enslave your mind, imagine the ultimate trick, making you question reality itself, gaslighting. Once you see it, you'll never trust the world in the same way again. Number 4, gaslighting, the reality twister. Gaslighting is the ultimate manipulation, a trick so subtle, so insidious, that it can make you question your own mind. Once you recognize it, you'll never be a victim again. Gaslighting isn't anger, it isn't aggression, it's mental hijacking. A gaslighter doesn't argue facts. They rewrite them. They make you doubt your memory, your judgment, and even your sanity. That never happened. You're imagining it. You're too sensitive. You're overreacting. I never said that. You're remembering wrong. The effect? You start doubting everything you know. You question your perception. You start apologizing for events you didn't cause. Machiavelli would recognize this immediately. Control is strongest when the subject believes the ruler's reality over their own. Gaslighting is obedience without chains. Gaslighting works because it attacks the foundations of your mind. 1. Memory distortion. Your recollection of events becomes unreliable. 2. Self-doubt. Your confidence erodes, making you easier to control. 3. Dependency. You begin relying on the manipulator for truth. Once these stages are in place, manipulators no longer need to force compliance. You will align with their narrative automatically. Imagine a colleague takes credit for your work. You confront them. You say, "I did the research on this project." They reply, "No, you didn't. You barely contributed." Over time, you start doubting yourself. You replay every interaction. Maybe you did contribute less than you thought. Maybe you were wrong. By the time the manipulator claims your work as theirs again, you don't even fight it. You've been trained to believe their reality is yours. Gaslighting exists in personal relationships, workplaces, politics, and even media. Romantic relationships. Partners twist your memory to create dependency. "I never said that." You're imagining it. Workplace. Leaders rewrite history to make employees question performance or loyalty. Politics and media. Narratives are spun to shift public perception, making truth subjective and malleable. Machiavelli's insight applies perfectly. A ruler who controls perception controls reality. And if the people believe the ruler's version of truth, resistance becomes impossible. Gaslighting is subtle. Unlike fear, guilt, or anger, it doesn't announce itself. It seeps into your subconscious, changing your perception of reality without you noticing. And the more you doubt yourself, the more you seek their guidance. That's the genius of it. The manipulator becomes your anchor, and their control becomes absolute. Say this out loud. I trust my reality. My mind is my truth, and I will not let anyone distort it. And if manipulators can twist your reality, imagine what they can do when they first trap you with charm and attention. Love bombing, the intoxicating trap that hooks you before you even realize it. Number 5, love bombing, the intoxicating trap. Love bombing is a manipulator's sweetest trap, designed to make you addicted before you even realize you're caught. Love bombing is manipulation disguised as affection. At first, it feels like a dream, endless attention, admiration, gifts, and compliments. You feel valued, adored, almost untouchable. But here's the trap. The intensity isn't natural, it's strategic. The manipulator floods your brain with dopamine and oxytocin, creating an emotional high so addictive that your brain begins to crave their presence. Machiavelli would recognize this as psychological seduction. Just as rulers might use flattery, favors, and indulgence to gain loyalty from subjects, manipulators exploit your reward system to gain obedience. Love bombing works in 3 stages. 1. Intense reward. The manipulator overwhelms you with attention, affection, or gifts. Your brain associates them with pleasure. 2. Withdrawal. Once they sense dependence, they pull back. The absence triggers anxiety, craving, and obsession. 3. Control. You chase the highs, try to regain their affection, effectively surrendering power to them. The cycle is subtle and addictive. You're not forced, you choose to stay, to plead, to comply, and that's the genius of it. Imagine meeting someone new. They text constantly, compliment every choice you make, buy small gifts just because, and shower you with admiration. You feel euphoric, lucky, even special. Then, slowly they withdraw attention. Maybe they cancel plans. Maybe they become distant. You panic. You question yourself. What did I do wrong? How can I make them happy again? The manipulator watches silently as you chase their attention. Every apology, every compromise, every effort to please is exactly what they wanted. Control, disguised as affection. Love bombing isn't limited to lovers. It exists in workplaces, politics, and social groups. Workplace. A boss praises you excessively before assigning impossible tasks. Politics. Leaders charm constituents with promises and charisma, building dependency before exploiting loyalty. Cult dynamics. Charismatic leaders overwhelm followers with praise, attention, and inclusion before demanding obedience. Machiavelli noted that rulers who can make subjects dependent on their favor gain absolute control without overt force. Love bombing is obedience disguised as adoration. The danger is that love bombing tricks the brain into addiction. You begin to prioritize their approval over your own judgment. Emotional highs become rewards. Emotional lows become punishments. The manipulator has created a psychological leash, and you are wearing it willingly. Say this with me. I deserve real love, not manipulation disguised as affection. My heart and mind are free from emotional traps. And if love can ensnare your emotions, imagine how manipulators start small to get everything. The foot in the door trick. The subtle way they make you say yes to things you'd never imagine agreeing to. Number 6, the foot in the door trick. Small steps, total control. The foot in the door trick is deceptively simple, but it's one of the most effective ways manipulators gain total control over your decisions without you even realizing it. Manipulators rarely ask for everything at once. Instead, they start small, seemingly harmless. Can you just help me with this tiny favor? Would you mind doing this small task? You say yes. It feels minor, trivial, no harm done. But here's the genius. Once you say yes to something small, your brain begins associating yourself with compliance. That tiny yes becomes a psychological anchor, making it easier to say yes to the next request, and the next until your freedom is gone. Machiavelli would recognize this as incremental control. Just as a ruler might slowly increase taxes or demands, manipulators escalate influence step by step, so you barely notice the erosion of your autonomy. The foot in the door technique works because of consistency bias. Humans have a deep-seated need to appear consistent in their actions. Stage 1. You comply with a small request. Stage 2. Your brain labels you as someone who says yes. Stage 3. Larger, more significant requests now feel natural, because rejecting them would create cognitive dissonance. In other words, you become your own jailer. You willingly obey because your mind wants to stay consistent. Imagine a coworker asks, "Can you cover my shift tomorrow?" It's just a small favor. You agree. Next week they ask, "Can you take the entire weekend? I have a family emergency." You hesitate, but your brain recalls that you agreed last time. Saying no now feels inconsistent with your helpful self-image. You agree again. Soon, you're trapped in a cycle of compliance. You aren't forced. You've trained yourself to obey. Machiavelli taught rulers that incremental change is more effective than abrupt force. People resist sudden demands, but small steps create compliance without rebellion. Manipulators today use the same principle. Romantic relationships. They gradually escalate control, starting with small requests for your time or attention. Workplace. They assign minor tasks, then increase demands until you're overworked but compliant. Politics and media. Policies or narratives are introduced incrementally, so resistance is minimal. The foot-in-the-door trick is psychological warfare, disguised as ordinary requests. The danger of this tactic is invisibility. You don't see the manipulation because each step feels reasonable. By the time you recognize it, your autonomy has already eroded, and the manipulator has you exactly where they want you. Say this with me. I say no when I mean no. Small requests do not define my freedom. I am in control of my choices. And if manipulators can slowly erode your autonomy with small requests, imagine how they create chaos using others against you. Triangulation, the manipulative art of controlling you through a third party. Number 7, triangulation, control through others. Triangulation is a manipulator's secret weapon. It's not what they say, but who they involve that controls you. Once you see this, you'll never let anyone manipulate your relationships again. Triangulation is simple in theory, terrifying in practice. Instead of confronting you directly, manipulators insert a third party to influence your emotions or decisions. A partner compares you to an ex. Why can't you be more like them? A boss praises another colleague in front of you. Look at how efficiently they handled this project. A friend spreads subtle rumors. I heard they said this about you. The goal? Instill insecurity, competition, or doubt, without ever lifting a finger themselves. You begin self-policing your actions, desperate to regain approval or avoid criticism. Machiavelli would call this divide and conquer. In The Prince, he teaches rulers that a divided people are easy to control. Triangulation is the personal version of this timeless strategy. Triangulation works because humans are wired for social comparison. 1. Insecurity. Being compared to someone else triggers self-doubt. 2. Obedience. You try harder to meet the manipulator's hidden standards. 3. Isolation. You rely on the manipulator for validation because they've shown others cannot be trusted. The result? You're trapped in a triangle where the manipulator occupies the apex, controlling all sides. Imagine your partner says, "If you really love me, you'd act more like my friend Jamie. They're so thoughtful." You start changing behavior to match Jamie. You question your own personality. You feel inferior, anxious, desperate to prove your worth. The manipulator doesn't have to say much. They let comparison and jealousy do the work. By controlling the narrative through someone else, they make you compete for love, approval, or status. Triangulation exists in workplaces, politics, and social groups. Workplace. Managers pit employees against each other subtly, making them compete for favor. Politics. Leaders or media pit factions against one another, while maintaining control from above. Friend groups. Subtle rumors or comparisons make you seek validation from a manipulator rather than peers. Machiavelli understood the power of division as a weapon. When the people are distracted by each other, the manipulator stays in control. Triangulation is dangerous because you self-police your behavior. The manipulator rarely confronts you directly. You do their work for them, fighting insecurities, competing for approval, and doubting your own instincts. It's subtle, silent, and nearly invisible, yet incredibly effective. Say this with me. I will not compete for approval. My value is not defined by comparisons. I am whole and complete on my own. And if manipulators can control you through others, imagine the power of unpredictability. Intermittent reinforcement. The manipulative art of rewarding and punishing at random, making your mind addicted to their approval. Number 8, intermittent reinforcement. The addiction loop. Intermittent reinforcement is one of the most psychologically addictive tricks manipulators use. It creates obsession, anxiety, and total dependence without you even realizing it. Intermittent reinforcement is deceptively simple. Manipulators reward you unpredictably. Sometimes you're praised, sometimes ignored, sometimes punished. You never know when the next positive reinforcement will come, and your brain becomes desperately hooked on the highs. This is the same principle casinos use. The unpredictable payoff keeps gamblers addicted. The manipulator's version is more dangerous. It targets your emotions, self-esteem, and sense of control. Machiavelli understood this principle centuries ago. He wrote that a ruler must balance fear and favor. Too much reward and the people grow complacent. Too much punishment and they rebel. Intermittent reinforcement ensures obedience and obsession simultaneously. Intermittent reinforcement works because of variable reward schedules. 1. Addiction to reward. Your brain releases dopamine when the manipulator shows approval. 2. Anxiety and absence. Uncertainty triggers tension, fear of loss, and constant monitoring of their behavior. 3. Compulsive compliance. You act, adapt, and anticipate to regain their approval, often overcompensating. You are literally wired to chase the highs and fear the lows. The manipulator doesn't need to force you. They make you do it willingly. Imagine a partner who alternates between extreme affection and cold indifference. Monday, constant texting, compliments, and attention. Tuesday, silent, distant, even subtly critical. Wednesday, random gesture of love or gift. Your brain becomes addicted. You start obsessing over their behavior, analyzing every interaction, chasing the next high. You become mentally and emotionally dependent on their unpredictable behavior. Manipulators in workplaces, politics, and social circles use this tactic. Workplace. Boss praises you one day, criticizes the next, keeping employees striving for approval. Politics. Leaders reward certain factions unpredictably, creating loyalty mixed with fear. Social groups/cults. Leaders give attention or recognition randomly, keeping followers addicted and compliant. Machiavelli would recognize this as mastery over emotion. A ruler controls subjects by alternating reward and punishment, so obedience becomes ingrained. The danger of intermittent reinforcement is its addictiveness. You are trapped in a cycle of hope and anxiety. Your mind becomes obsessed with predicting and regaining the manipulator's favor, and your sense of independence erodes. Unlike overt threats or coercion, this tactic hijacks your reward system, making you complicit in your own manipulation. Say this out loud: I am not addicted to approval. I am free from the highs and lows of manipulation. My worth does not depend on anyone else. And if unpredictability can make you a willing puppet, imagine what manipulators achieve when they isolate you completely. Isolation, the silent, suffocating trap that makes you rely only on them. Number 9, isolation, the silent cage. Isolation is one of the most insidious manipulation tactics. It cuts you off from the world, leaving you dependent, vulnerable, and entirely in the manipulator's control. Isolation doesn't always start violently. It's subtle. Your friends don't understand us. They're toxic. You don't need family meddling in our lives. I'll be your only support. You don't need anyone else. Step by step, the manipulator removes your connections, replacing them with themselves as your sole anchor. The outside world, which could provide perspective and resistance, disappears. Machiavelli recognized this centuries ago. Rulers often divide and isolate subjects, weakening bonds that could foster rebellion. Isolation is the personal version of that timeless principle. Isolation works because humans are social creatures. 1. Dependency. Cut off from advice or support. You rely on the manipulator for guidance and validation. 2. Vulnerability. Without external perspectives, doubts and fears fester. 3. Control. Manipulators can now dictate behavior, choices, and even thoughts without interference. You begin to see the world through their lens, and your autonomy vanishes. Imagine a partner who subtly erodes your support system. At first, they complain about your friends. They're always gossiping about us. Then, they subtly discourage family contact. Your parents never understand our relationship. Eventually, you find yourself alone with them emotionally, fearing conflict with anyone else. Now, every decision, thought, and action becomes filtered through their control. You are isolated, physically or emotionally, and the manipulator has full leverage. Isolation is a tool in workplaces, cults, and politics as well. Workplace. Boss limits collaboration, making you dependent on their approval. Cults. Leaders cut members off from friends or family, creating total loyalty. Politics. Leaders foster distrust among citizens, weakening collective resistance. Machiavelli understood the power of dividing people. Isolation ensures that the manipulator faces no opposition and controls every narrative. Isolation is terrifying because it's silent and gradual. You don't realize the manipulation until resistance feels impossible. The manipulator becomes your only anchor, and every decision feels dictated by survival rather than choice. Say this out loud. I am never truly alone. I seek support, truth, and perspective. My freedom does not depend on isolation. And if isolation can strip you of support, imagine the manipulator who uses your own mind against you. Projection. Turning your thoughts, fears, and flaws into their weapon. Number 10. Projection. Weaponizing your mind. Projection is a manipulator's cleverest trick. They take their own faults, intentions, or insecurities and make you believe it's all about you. Projection works like a psychological sleight of hand. The manipulator accuses you of what they themselves are doing. You're so controlling. When they are controlling, you don't trust me. When they are lying or cheating, you're selfish. When they manipulate you for their gain, you begin to doubt your judgment. You start questioning your actions, your intentions, even your sanity. Machiavelli would recognize this instantly. A ruler who projects weaknesses or vices onto others can shift blame, sow confusion, and maintain control without confrontation. Projection works because of cognitive dissonance and self-doubt. 1. Externalize blame. You start believing the manipulator's accusations, doubting your intentions. 2. Defensiveness. You spend energy defending yourself, even when you are not at fault. 3. Distraction. Your focus shifts from the manipulator's behavior to your own perceived flaws, keeping you compliant and less likely to resist. The manipulator controls your attention, emotions, and perception, all while seeming innocent. Imagine a colleague constantly making mistakes, but accusing you of being careless. They say, if you weren't so careless, this project wouldn't be failing. You start questioning your competence. You obsess over minor details, try to fix mistakes that weren't yours. Meanwhile, the manipulator avoids accountability entirely. You've been tricked into doing their work for them, mentally, emotionally, and physically. Projection exists in relationships, politics, and social dynamics. Romantic relationships. Partners accuse you of cheating or lying when they are the unfaithful ones. Politics. Leaders blame citizens for social problems caused by policy failures. Groups and cults. Leaders accuse members of weakness or sin while exploiting them for control. Machiavelli understood that confusion and blame shifting create obedience. Projection is control disguised as accusation. Projection is dangerous because it warps reality. You internalize accusations, doubt yourself, and focus on defending against imaginary faults. Meanwhile, the manipulator remains untouchable, orchestrating your thoughts and actions from behind the scenes. Say this out loud. I see clearly. I own my truth, and I will not accept false blame. My mind is my own. And if projection can manipulate your perception, imagine how manipulators exploit your emotions directly. Emotional blackmail, the art of making your feelings the chains that bind you. Number 11. Emotional blackmail, your feelings as leverage. Emotional blackmail is the manipulator's most personal attack. They don't threaten your possessions. They threaten your heart, your peace, and your very sense of self. Emotional blackmail is the subtle art of making you feel responsible for their happiness or pain. Manipulators threaten loss, sadness, or anger if you don't comply, without ever explicitly demanding obedience. Classic examples. If you really love me, you do this. After everything I've sacrificed for you, you owe me. If you leave, I'll be devastated. You comply not because you want to, but because your heart and conscience fear the emotional consequences. Machiavelli would recognize this as control through perceived morality and duty. A ruler doesn't need to use force if subjects fear emotional or social punishment for disobedience. Emotional blackmail works because it exploits your empathy and attachment. 1. Fear of loss. You fear rejection, abandonment, or emotional fallout. 2. Obligation. You feel morally responsible for their feelings. 3. Compliance. You act against your own interest to alleviate imagined guilt or fear. The manipulator's power is invisible. They control your mind and actions through your own emotions. Imagine a partner says, "If you go out with your friends tonight, I'll be so lonely and hurt. I guess I'll just stay home alone again." You feel guilty. Your evening plans vanish. You prioritize their feelings over your own freedom. This is psychological imprisonment disguised as care. You comply, believing it's love or compassion, when in fact it's manipulation. Emotional blackmail exists everywhere. Workplace. Managers imply that poor performance will let the team down, forcing overwork. Family. Parents or siblings use guilt to control choices, even in adulthood. Politics. Leaders exploit collective guilt or fear to gain obedience or votes. Machiavelli understood that fear and obligation are stronger than affection alone. Emotional blackmail turns empathy into a leash. The danger of emotional blackmail is its covert nature. You comply out of love, guilt, or fear, but over time, your autonomy and self-worth erode. You feel trapped in a cycle where your emotions are no longer yours. Say this out loud. My feelings are mine. I am not responsible for manipulating others' emotions. I act with clarity and freedom. And if your emotions can be weaponized, imagine a manipulator who makes you feel lucky just to exist in their orbit. Idealization and devaluation, the dangerous cycle of praise and criticism that keeps you addicted. Number 12, idealization and devaluation, the push and pull trap. Idealization and devaluation is one of the most powerful manipulative cycles. It makes you addicted to approval while fearing rejection, keeping you under their control. The sweetest high, the sharpest fall. Manipulators use a push and pull technique. 1. Idealization. You are showered with compliments, attention, and affection. You feel adored, special, and seen. 2. Devaluation. Suddenly, the same person criticizes, ignores, or belittles you. Your confidence wavers, and you crave their approval again. The cycle repeats endlessly. The highs intoxicate, the lows terrify, and you remain hooked on their emotional roller coaster. Machiavelli understood this. Rulers who mix favor and fear control obedience more effectively than those who use only one. Praise builds loyalty. Criticism builds dependence. This manipulation works because of intermittent reward and emotional dependency. Addiction to approval. Your brain craves the highs of praise. Fear of loss. Criticism or neglect triggers anxiety and compels compliance. Cognitive dissonance. You rationalize their behavior, convincing yourself you deserve both love and criticism. The result? You become psychologically dependent, chasing validation while fearing abandonment. Imagine a partner who says, "Monday, you're amazing. I can't believe how lucky I am to have you." Tuesday, "Why did you do that? I don't understand you sometimes." Wednesday, "I can't imagine life without you, but you need to change." You obsess over their approval, constantly trying to earn the praise while fearing the criticism. Your emotions are no longer yours. They belong to the manipulator. This tactic exists in workplaces, politics, and social hierarchies. Workplace. Bosses praise employees for compliance, then harshly criticize minor mistakes to maintain control. Politics. Leaders shower citizens with praise or hope, then instill fear or shame to keep loyalty. Social groups/cults. Leaders alternate between admiration and condemnation to create dependency. Machiavelli would note that control through alternating favor and fear creates obedience without rebellion. The danger lies in addiction and confusion. You chase the highs of praise and dread the lows of criticism. Over time, self-esteem erodes, and the manipulator becomes your emotional anchor and your jailer. Say this out loud. I deserve consistent respect and honesty. I will not be addicted to someone else's praise or fear. My self-worth is independent. And if manipulators can hook you on praise and fear, imagine what they can do when they disguise their control as freedom. The illusion of choice, making you think you decide while they pull the strings. Number 13, the illusion of choice, puppet mastery. The illusion of choice is one of the most deceptive manipulations. It makes you believe you're free, while you're dancing exactly as they planned. Manipulators rarely demand obedience outright. Instead, they frame options to make you feel empowered, while steering you toward the desired outcome. Do you want to handle this task today or tomorrow? Either choice benefits them. Would you rather go here or there? Both options serve their agenda. You can leave if you want, but I don't think you should. They appear permissive, but your freedom is an illusion. You feel in control, yet every decision ultimately aligns with their goal. Machiavelli would recognize this tactic. Rulers who mask power as freedom ensure obedience without resistance. When people believe they decide, they comply without realizing it. The illusion of choice works because of perceived autonomy. 1. Empowered compliance. You act willingly because your brain perceives choice. 2. Reduce resistance. Believing you are in control diminishes rebellion. 3. Self-justification. You rationalize your decisions as independent, even when manipulated. The manipulator doesn't need force. They make your own mind their accomplice. Imagine a manager says, "Do you want to present your project on Tuesday or Thursday?" You pick Tuesday. Unbeknownst to you, Tuesday was chosen to suit the manager's schedule, not yours. You leave thinking, "I made the decision," while complying exactly with their plan. This invisible guidance feels voluntary, yet it's a masterful form of control. This tactic is used in relationships, politics, and social groups. Romantic relationships. Partners frame choices to manipulate your behavior while appearing considerate. Politics. Governments offer options for policies, while outcomes favor the state, not citizens. Social groups/cults. Leaders present actions as voluntary, yet each step deepens dependence and control. Machiavelli would note that perceived freedom reduces resistance and increases compliance, making the manipulator invisible but all-powerful. The danger lies in subtle indoctrination. You believe you are free, but every choice reinforces the manipulator's agenda. Over time, you lose awareness of true autonomy and unknowingly serve their objectives. Say this out loud. My decisions are my own. I see manipulation and maintain true autonomy. No one controls my mind or choices without my consent. And if manipulators can trick you into believing you choose, imagine how they distort your reality by twisting truth and lies. The manipulation of facts, turning reality into their playground. Number 14, the manipulation of facts, reality as their playground. Manipulators don't just lie. They distort facts, twist reality, and turn truth into a tool for control. Once you see it, you'll never take information at face value again. Manipulators rarely confront directly. Instead, they reframe events, exaggerate, or omit key details to shape your perception. I only said that because you misunderstood me. Everyone else agrees with me. You're the only one who's wrong. That never happened. You're imagining things. Through constant distortion, your perception becomes fluid and unreliable, making the manipulator's version of reality the one you trust. Machiavelli recognized that control over perception is control over action. If people believe your narrative is flawed, they rely on you for truth, and the manipulator gains power invisibly. Fact manipulation works because of 1. Cognitive confusion. You question memory, events, and your own judgment. 2. Dependence. You start relying on a manipulator to clarify reality. 3. Compliance. When reality is uncertain, you follow the manipulator's guidance to feel secure. This tactic is subtle, yet profoundly effective. You are trapped in a version of reality that benefits them, and often you don't even notice. Imagine a colleague who alters credit for a project. They say, "You barely contributed to the presentation." You remember clearly contributing, but they twist facts, downplaying your work. Others start believing their version. You doubt yourself and adjust your actions to avoid errors in their eyes. By controlling facts, the manipulator dominates your perception and behavior without raising a hand. This tactic appears in relationships, politics, and social influence. Romantic relationships. Partners deny promises or commitments to make you doubt your memory. Politics. Leaders spin events, facts, or statistics to shape public perception and control opinion. Social groups/cults. Leaders reinterpret past events or selectively share information to maintain obedience. Machiavelli would observe that he who controls truth controls power. Manipulating facts ensures the manipulator's agenda progresses unnoticed. The danger lies in distorted reality. You begin doubting your memory, judgment, and intuition. Compliance becomes easier, critical thinking harder, and resistance nearly impossible. Say this out loud. I discern truth from manipulation. I trust my memory and judgment. My perception is my own, untouchable by lies. And if manipulators can twist fact to control perception, imagine how they use fear itself as a weapon. Fear conditioning, making your own mind a battlefield. Number 15, fear conditioning, obedience through terror. Fear conditioning is one of the most primal manipulations, turning your natural instincts against yourself, making you compliant, anxious, and dependent. Manipulators don't always shout or threaten openly. They condition your mind subtly. If you fail at this, everyone will think less of you. If you leave me, you'll regret it. Don't make a mistake or it will cost you. Repeated exposure to these threats, real or implied, trains your brain to anticipate negative consequences constantly. You act preemptively, obeying their desires before they even ask. Machiavelli wrote extensively about ruling through fear. A ruler who is feared is often obeyed more consistently than one who is loved, as long as fear controlled and calculated. Fear conditioning works because of 1. Anticipatory anxiety. You start expecting punishment, criticism, or loss. 2. Behavioral compliance. You act to avoid fear, often against your own interest. 3. Mental hijacking. Your decisions are now dictated by fear, not reason. This creates a mental loop. The manipulator controls your actions indirectly by training your brain to avoid negative outcomes. Imagine a manager subtly threatening. If you don't meet the deadline, it could affect your promotion. You obsess over the task, double-checking every detail. You work overtime unnecessarily, stressed and anxious. Even without explicit coercion, your behavior is entirely dictated by fear. Fear conditioning is silent, relentless, and highly effective. Fear conditioning exists in relationships, politics, and groups. Romantic relationships. Partners imply emotional consequences for minor disagreements. Politics. Leaders use fear of outsiders, failure, or chaos to control behavior and opinion. Social groups/cults. Members are conditioned to fear punishment, rejection, or exile for non-compliance. Machiavelli would see this as strategic terror. A disciplined fear ensures loyalty while reducing rebellion. The danger lies in internalized fear. You act as your own jailer, anticipating punishment and complying automatically. Over time, fear becomes a constant companion, eroding autonomy, confidence, and clarity. Say this out loud. I act with courage and clarity. Fear does not control me. I make decisions free from intimidation. And if fear can dictate your actions, imagine how manipulators combine fear with false hope, reward, and punishment, creating a psychological cage of compliance and desire. Number 16, reward and punishment, the psychological cage. Reward and punishment is a manipulator's ultimate lever. They use pleasure and pain to train your mind to obey, turning compliance into an addictive cycle. Manipulators combine carrots and sticks to keep you in a state of constant anticipation. Reward, praise, attention, gifts, or approval. Punishment, criticism, neglect, withdrawal, or emotional coldness. You never know what behavior will bring reward or punishment next. Your mind becomes hypervigilant, always trying to anticipate and adapt, effectively obeying their invisible rules. Machiavelli emphasized that a ruler who balances fear and favor commands loyalty. Too much fear alone leads to rebellion. Too much reward leads to entitlement. The manipulator mirrors this principle perfectly. Reward and punishment works because of behavioral conditioning. 1. Addiction to reward. Your brain craves positive reinforcement, whether it's praise, attention, or affection. 2. Avoidance of punishment. You act to prevent criticism, anger, or withdrawal. 3. Cycle of dependence. You are trapped in an emotional loop. Pleasure and pain dictate your actions. Unlike overt coercion, this method makes you police your own behavior, ensuring compliance without confrontation. Imagine a partner or manager who alternates. Reward: you're incredible at this. I'm so proud of you. Punishment: I can't believe you messed this up. I expected better. You become obsessive, try to maximize praise and avoid criticism. Every action is calculated subconsciously to fit their invisible standard. This creates a psychological cage. You feel motivated, yet restricted, addicted to their validation, while fearing their disapproval. This tactic exists in workplaces, politics, and social groups. Workplace: managers praise employees selectively and punish mistakes to maximize control. Politics: leaders reward compliant factions and punish dissenters to maintain dominance. Cult/social groups: members receive approval or ostracization based on obedience, keeping them under strict behavioral control. Machiavelli recognized that managing reward and punishment strategically secures power and obedience without direct confrontation. The danger lies in internalized control. You begin policing your own actions, thoughts, and emotions to satisfy the manipulator. Over time, your autonomy erodes, and your sense of self becomes dependent on their approval. Say this out loud: I act freely and without fear. I am not motivated by others' control. My decisions are mine alone. And if manipulators can trap you in reward and punishment, imagine what they can do by twisting your reality further. Reality anchoring: the ultimate weapon to make you question your own sanity. Number 17. Reality anchoring: the manipulator's version of truth. Reality anchoring is a more refined evolution of gaslighting. It doesn't deny your reality outright. It redefines it. The manipulator doesn't erase your memories. They reshape their meaning, guiding how you interpret everything that happens. It's not about confusion anymore. It's about control through interpretation. They become your anchor, the voice that tells you what things really mean. Over time, you stop trusting your own conclusions and start depending on theirs. Reality anchoring works through subtle psychological engineering. 1. Reframing: they twist context to favor their narrative. I wasn't ignoring you. I was giving you space. 2. Emotional labeling: they dictate what you should feel about events. You're not angry, you're just stressed. 3. Moral recasting: they turn their harmful actions into lessons, tests, or sacrifices. Each reinterpretation moves you one step away from independent thought. The manipulator becomes the author of your emotional and moral landscape. Machiavelli understood this principle well. Men are driven less by truth than by the interpretation of it. Those who control meaning control minds. Imagine a partner or leader who constantly explains your feelings for you. You express hurt. They say you're overthinking. You call out manipulation. They say you're misunderstanding their intentions. You begin to feel that maybe you are wrong, that their reasoning must be wiser, more objective, more right. Eventually, your emotional compass breaks. You look to them for guidance on how to feel, think, and react. Your mind becomes tethered to their interpretations, a psychological leash disguised as wisdom. Reality anchoring thrives in power systems. Workplaces: leaders redefine exploitation as opportunity and burnout as dedication. Politics: governments recast oppression as security and censorship as protection. Relationships: manipulators rename cruelty as tough love or emotional honesty. The danger lies in surrendering interpretation. You stop asking what happened and start asking what they think it means. Once it happens, your world is no longer yours. Say this out loud: I define my own truth and perception. I interpret reality through clarity, not manipulation. My mind is mine alone. And if reality anchoring rewrites your interpretation of truth, imagine what happens when manipulators make you overinvest emotionally. Mirror trap: the silent chains that make obedience feel like loyalty. Number 18. The mirror trap: the illusion of understanding. The mirror trap is one of the most seductive forms of manipulation because it feels like connection. The manipulator doesn't dominate you through fear or force. They reflect you. Every emotion, belief, and desire you show becomes a tool to win your trust. They mirror your tone, your opinions, your pain. You think, finally, someone who understands me. But in truth, they're constructing a mask, one made entirely from your reflection. The mirror trap exploits 3 psychological vulnerabilities. 1. Validation hunger. Humans crave recognition. The manipulator amplifies this by becoming your emotional echo. 2. False empathy. Their imitation feels like empathy, but it's strategic, used to lower your defenses. 3. Identity fusion. You begin to see them as an extension of yourself. When that happens, disagreement feels like self-betrayal. Machiavelli would recognize this as the art of mirroring power to gain loyalty. By becoming what their target values most, manipulators ensure emotional compliance without visible coercion. Imagine a partner or leader who seems to share every opinion you have, your values, your frustrations, even your humor. At first, it feels intimate, safe, but slowly, you notice they never truly reveal their own views. Their identity shifts with yours. You're not bonding, you're being studied. Every mirror gesture deepens the illusion of trust. And once you're emotionally dependent on their understanding, they can withdraw it, turning that comfort into punishment. You begin chasing their approval, desperate to restore the connection that never truly existed. This tactic appears in every power structure. Workplaces. Manipulative managers mimic employees' ambitions and ideals to extract effort and loyalty. Politics. Leaders echo public sentiment, only to reshape it later for their agenda. Relationships. Emotional manipulators reflect back love, empathy, or pain, only to weaponize it later for control. The danger of the mirror trap is not the imitation, it's the illusion. You believe you found alignment, but what you're seeing is an expertly crafted projection designed to manipulate your trust. Say this out loud. I see beyond imitation. My emotions are not tools for control. Authenticity is my shield against false reflection. And if the mirror trap manipulates through reflection, imagine what happens when manipulators don't mirror you, but are obsessed about you. Obsession induction, the next weapon that makes you forget who you truly are. Number 19, obsession induction. Hooked on their control. Obsession induction is one of the most addictive manipulation tactics. It turns your thoughts, attention, and emotions into their constant playground. Manipulators use intermittent reinforcement, unpredictability, and emotional highs/lows to capture your focus entirely. You're the only one who understands me. I need your opinion, you're special. Sudden praise or attention after neglect. The result? You think about them constantly, analyze every interaction, and adjust your behavior to maximize their attention. Machiavelli would recognize this as mastery over focus and desire. When someone's attention is consumed by you, their actions and decisions can be subtly steered without force. Obsession induction works because of dopamine-driven reward loops. 1. Fixation on reward. Praise, attention, or acknowledgement becomes addictive. 2. Anxiety and absence. Lack of attention creates tension and longing. 3. Compulsive behavior. You think, plan, and act to regain favor or presence. The manipulator doesn't need direct control. You enslave yourself through desire. Imagine a partner or colleague who alternates unpredictably. Morning, I couldn't do this without you, you're incredible. Afternoon, silent or critical. Evening, small gesture or message rekindles attention. You replay interactions, analyze words, and try to anticipate next moves. You are obsessively focused on their behavior, without realizing they orchestrated this fixation. This tactic appears in social groups, politics, and media influence. Social groups. Leaders manipulate attention and approval to make followers fixate on them or the group ideology. Politics. Public figures create cult-like fascination through unpredictability and emotional highs/lows. Marketing and media. Brands engineer obsession using reward loops, attention spikes, and scarcity triggers. Machiavelli would note that capturing attention is a subtle form of domination. The mind itself becomes a battlefield. The danger lies in losing mental autonomy. Your thoughts, decisions, and emotions are consumed by someone else's manipulations. Over time, you are addicted to their presence, attention, and approval, making independent action almost impossible. Say this out loud. My attention and focus are mine. I am not addicted to anyone's presence or approval. I act freely and maintain clarity. And if manipulators can consume your mind, imagine the final ultimate trick. the combination of all dark psychology tactics into invisible control. Total psychological domination. Number 20, total psychological domination, the ultimate control. Before we reveal this final dark weapon, hit that like button and subscribe now. Total psychological domination is a pinnacle of manipulation. It fuses isolation, fear, reward, obsession, and perception control to make you entirely compliant without realizing it. Total domination is not about one trick. It's the orchestration of many. Isolation to remove outside support. Gaslighting to make you doubt reality. Reward and punishment to condition behavior. Obsession induction to capture your focus. Projection and idealization devaluation to control emotions. Each tactic is a strand in a web. Together, they ensnare your mind, will, and emotions, making resistance almost impossible. Machiavelli described the same principle. A ruler who balances fear, favor, and perception control commands absolute obedience. Total psychological domination applies the same principle at a personal level. Total domination works because of comprehensive manipulation. 1. Mind control. Your perception, memory, and thoughts are guided by the manipulator. 2. Behavioral control. Your actions follow their agenda, often without conscious realization. 3. Emotional control. You are trapped in cycles of attachment, guilt, fear, and desire. 4. Dependency. You rely on them for validation, truth, and emotional stability. By combining tactics, manipulators ensure every part of your mind becomes influenced, creating an invisible cage you willingly inhabit. Consider a manipulative partner or leader who cuts off friends/family, isolation, accuses you of faults they commit, projection, alternates praise and criticism, idealization/devaluation, creates dependency through fear and reward, fear conditioning and reward/punishment, keeps you obsessed with their attention and approval, obsession induction. By the time you recognize manipulation, you're already deeply entrenched, complying without realizing the depth of control. This tactic exists in workplaces, politics, cults, and social movements. Workplace. Leaders subtly control thought, emotion, and action through combined psychological tactics. Politics. Leaders maintain power by influencing perception, loyalty, fear, and dependence. Cults/social groups. Followers are manipulated across multiple psychological layers, ensuring obedience. Machiavelli would note that the strongest control is invisible control, when people believe they act freely, yet every choice serves the manipulator. The danger is complete surrender of autonomy. You may feel free, justified, or loyal, but your mind, emotions, and actions are orchestrated entirely by another. Without awareness and strategies to reclaim control, total domination becomes nearly permanent. Say this out loud. I reclaim my mind, my decisions, and my freedom. I see manipulation clearly and act independently. No one controls me without my consent. Now you've seen the full arsenal. 20 dark psychology tricks used by manipulators, from subtle influence to total domination. Awareness is your shield. Recognition is your first step to breaking free. Hit that like button, subscribe, and share this knowledge, because understanding these tactics is the ultimate form of power over your own mind.